Good morning, everyone. It is good to see you guys. Facebook always takes a little while to get going here. Here we go. Now we're going. All right, awesome. Good to see you all. Click this, and we're good. Happy, whatever day it is that you're watching this. It's Monday for me. I'm glad to see you guys. It looks like I need a haircut a little bit, huh? It's a little out of control, but that's some people like it. They've been calling me the crazy professor or whatever, so I think I'm gonna maybe keep that hair thing going. All right, let's get going. I got a bunch of questions here. Some really good ones. I looked through them earlier, so let's just get started and go from there. First question is from Ricardo Delgado. What would you do to find more barbers to come work in your barbershop? I have a barber brand and I'm looking to hire up incoming barbers that want to build their career. I feel like my brand helps barbers build themselves up by joining our team. I just need to find a better way to market this to the right people. Thanks. Great question, Ricardo. So, look, labor is an issue in all industries. People are all trying to recruit top talent. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. And it always comes down to having a deliberate and specific culture that is exciting and marketable to your employees. So that's kind of the first step, is you've got to make sure you've got a great place to work, which it sounds like you do. And then in your specific instance, any type of trade type business, look, at the end of the day, there aren't enough people in the trades of any type. So if you need a skilled worker of some sort, a lot of times people start with education, right? So like people coming right out of school, and building those relationships with the schools that pump these people out, and volunteering your time, volunteering your business's time as a place where people can get real world experience. Let them come in as interns, or especially if you offer paid intern positions, is a great way to get people in the door before they graduate. Get them in there doing something, introduced to your crew, and what it is to be with you versus them going out and finding other folks. And you really want to have enough flow that you can still choose the right people. You don't want to grab everybody, and that's the hardest thing when you're really trying to, when you're in a labor crunch. You want to get anybody who will volunteer to be your employee. But you always, even when you're in a labor crunch, you really want to make sure that you maintain the right culture and you hire the right people that are going to add value, not only just because they're there, but add value to the whole culture, because then it becomes a virtuous cycle, to use Simon Sinek's words, I guess, a virtuous cycle of people adding value to your culture, and your culture becoming stronger, and then being more marketable and more interesting, and making it easier to recruit more and more people. So I would say go after people that are, make those relationships with the schools, make those relationships where they first, show up into your industry, so that you can kind of groom them and take your pick at the beginning of their career. Is a good place to start. And let me think, what other tricks have I heard about over the years, have been involved in? I think that's probably the main one, because you want a steady flow. And also depending on where you are, what city you're in, and how much, like here in Florida, for example, we've got a lot of incoming people to all of our cities. So marketing and advertising to places where people are coming from is also kind of a good strategy if you've got a lot of inflow of people into your community, because you can kind of offer them a job before they arrive, if they're coming down to where you are anyway. So yeah, I think that is that one. Rachel Hassan. How do I trust a hire with my business methods and secrets? In quotes. I have an Amazon account management company and I want to grow, so I need someone somewhat qualified as me to duplicate myself in my business so I can trust them and let them do what I do. Great question. So I would ask the question of two things. One, are these really secrets? Like, are these really things that nobody else knows? Or is it just that you would really just be training someone to do something that they could ultimately on YouTube Google around and figure it out themselves if they wanted to? So that's the first question. If it's truly like some super secret corporate thing, that's kind of a different story, but I don't really think that's probably what it is. You have some, methods that you've created and some efficiencies that you've created, which are, of course, good. But I don't think we have to worry about the secrets component of it. I think the real question is how do you duplicate yourself? And also the other thing to remember is along these same lines, because I think the implied nature of your question is that if I teach them my secrets, then they will go become an entrepreneur and do everything by themselves as well. That's debatable. Most of the time, people that are entrepreneurs, and people who are employees are employees. I know a friend of mine's business, he has a manager that he's had for like 20 years. She's his top level person. She runs the whole business. He has like, he maybe checks in a half an hour a week on this business, and the business cranks out tons of money for him. It's a great business, and his manager runs the whole thing. Is in charge of everything good, bad, whatever comes up, she takes care of it. But at the end of so she knows everything. She knows the whole business. She knows the business better than he does. She knows the secrets. She invented the secrets. She probably has secrets that he doesn't even know. But at the end of the day, she says, and I think this is very indicative of this employee entrepreneur conversation. She says, I'm glad that I'm not the owner because I don't want to have to deal with the headaches if they come up. She says that, but she does deal with all the headaches. But because she's an employee mindset, that's how she looks at it. As long as she's an employee, as long as she is not the one signing the checks, the payroll checks, then she feels much more comfortable, even though she is in charge of everything and handles every difficult thing that comes up. She's more than qualified. So my point is with that is anybody who's worried about hiring people because they don't want to show them their secrets or they don't want to like train their competition, it's a big leap for people to go from being an employee to being an actual entrepreneur, especially if your business has any level of complexity or risk associated with it. Even a minor level of risk, having to sign a lease, having to rent a truck, lease a truck, having to hire people, that's all risk. And the average person who's an employee mindset that alone will keep them from ever going out on their own, which creates a little moat for all us entrepreneurs who are willing to do it. So to answer your question, how do you duplicate yourself? Just to kind of like add to that a little bit, SOPs, standard operating procedures. You have to document what you're doing. You cannot just hire someone and be like, cool, now here's how I do it. This is I'm guilty of this. This is how I do it, and I wave my hands around, and then like after 2 hours of me waving my hands and talking at them, I expect them to just be like me, and that never works. You do have to spend the time building your standard operating procedures, documenting everything, and then training them properly to give them a chance to succeed. So if you don't have all that stuff written down or videos made of how to actually do what you do, that's where I would start before even worrying about hiring anybody, because you do have to get that stuff down. Otherwise, your hire will be more difficult to integrate and get it going. Okay, Grant Elliott. How do I scale my online coaching business to begin bringing on new coaches to work with clients? My company helps people via an online low back rehab program. My clients mostly find me on social media and build trust with me personally. How do I build messaging and processes so when they sign up, they are okay working with one of my coaches, trainers, instead of me personally? Great question. So I have an exact example of this. So my wife, who has been a grant writer as long as I've known her, which is a long time now, grant writer. She was a freelance grant writer. She did it by herself. She had all kinds of great clients, big names, and she got big grants, big money for these different people, different companies, different nonprofits. She would really just take only the number of clients that she could manage herself and that she was comfortable managing herself. She didn't want to overbook herself, so she really managed her schedule. At one point, a bunch of years back, we said, there's so much demand for what she does, and we know how to communicate with her market very well, so why not scale up her business? And the first roadblock we ran into was, or not even say roadblock, but the first unknown that we had to overcome was, up to this point, she'd made all of her living and all of her sales and marketing around, hey, it's her. She's the one doing it. So we had to scale. In order to scale, we had to take that out of the marketing. We had to take that away. So the first thing we did was run test sales and marketing campaigns that talked more in terms of a firm. We used her exact language that she would say as a person, as an individual, saying, hey, these are the things I do, and this is what it is, and this is how it works. Same stuff, but we just took her face and her name off of it. We had her name and her face on the website as the founder, as the person who kind of oversees the whole thing, but it was no longer so much that she's actually doing the work. And that was our first test. We did that. And we made sales first to determine and get that right before we worry about hiring. And honestly, nobody cared at that point. And maybe it'll be different in your business. Maybe I don't know how you're doing your marketing or how you're communicating, but it's a good possibility that if you just shift all of your marketing away from making it all about you to talking more in terms of being a firm that does this, and we have all these great people, and this is my experience and this is their experience, and you don't even have to list them by face or name. It could just be a very general, hey, we're a firm, like a law firm. And everybody has these different specialties or whatever. Run that test first and see if you can still make sales and see if you can still build if you can still make sales. Because if you can, then you'll know you're good to go. Test it out and then A/B test it, right? Like you have the A test because you've been doing it yourself with your face and name as the focus. Just change the messaging and drop your face and name and make it more of a general, we're a firm that does this. See what the results are. And that's where I would start. It is very difficult to convert your customers though, at least in my experience. If the customers know you specifically, you'll have to and you want to get them off of your books and onto somebody else's schedule, you'll have to do a little bit more effort on that side to get them to accept a new person, which isn't impossible by any means. You just have to make sure you hold their hand and talk to them about why this person is going to take them to the next level or make this better or not. You just have to do a little effort. But for the people that are new, who've never worked with you directly, they'll just accept the firm as a firm, and they'll be happy with whoever you put them with, as long as they're good quality and they're doing a good job, which goes back to the SOPs, standard operating procedures, making sure that you have all the systems in place to ensure standardized quality across all your coaches, so that they're all offering the same program, producing the same outcomes, and that's all managed. So that would be your second step. After you get your messaging straight, make sure that you've got your operational stuff. And you might have to do this in phases, right? Test your messaging. Does it work or does it not work? Yes, it does work. Perfect. Now pause your sales, work on your sales and marketing stuff, or not your sales and marketing, work on your operational stuff. Make sure you can hire coaches and they can produce that quality, and you've got the right quality checks and all that stuff in there. And then turn the sales machine back on. You might have to bounce back and forth like that a few times while you work both things up to so you can really scale it up. Okay, cool, good question. Next question, Heather Brockman. What are initial things for me to take into consideration when launching our complementive e-commerce store in the business? Our mobile pet grooming company is starting our online store. We currently have a few of our own products that are live, but I was wanting to offer more products. Is it best to start with inventory on hand or offer drop shipping? And if so, are there websites that are best for finding these items? Great question, Heather. Okay, so with anybody else who's starting a complementary business to one of their other businesses, the key thing to note there is that it's a different business. It's not just because it's complementary doesn't mean that it's not going to be a distraction, or that you don't have to build a separate management team, or you have to think of it as a separate business. It's going to be a separate deal. So that's kind of the first thing. First recommendation is or thing to consider is you're starting a new business. Don't forget that, even though it's related. Next question. I like buying stuff that already exists. If you could buy a store or an e-commerce business that's in the industry, that's complementary, as you're saying, that has a bunch of systems and processes and vendor relationships and all that stuff in place, even if it's small, it might be worth considering acquiring something, and then it's just all done and you're ready to go. It doesn't waste a lot of time, and you could just get the ball rolling very quickly that way. As far as building up inventory or drop shipping, look, inventory sucks. You don't want to get stuck with inventory, even if it costs you a little bit more in the early stages, especially because if you don't know what your product mix is and like who you're selling to, and you don't know how fast things are going to move. I would avoid building up inventory, especially in these early stages. Once you realize really what's selling, and like, oh, hey, if I have an inventory versus drop shipping, I can make this much more margin, then maybe you want to do it. But in the early stages, while you're just figuring out, it doesn't hurt to use drop shipping whenever you can. Website's the best to find these items? That I don't know off the top of my head. That I am unsure of. I know a bunch of people that are in the e-commerce retail pet business. So if you want to reach out, to me, I can make some intros, and maybe they'll have some ideas on what you'd be looking at, or maybe you could even partner with them or something like that. That's another thing you could do too. You don't even have to start a whole e-commerce thing and manage the whole shebang yourself. Another thing you can look at is because really what you have to ask yourself is, what's the hard part of this? Well, the hard part of it, in my opinion, is not having the store and having the products and being able to process credit cards, all that operational stuff. That's the easy stuff. You'll get that figured out one way or the other. The hard part is going to be scaling your sales. So if that's your hard part, maybe focus immediately on scaling your sales by partnering with another website that actually does exactly what you want them to do, and then put all your attention on scaling sales, and then working in some sort of referral or partner joint venture agreement where they provide all of that stuff and you provide the sales side. I know a very successful company based down here in Florida. Within 4 years, they were doing $60 million in revenue, and that's all they did. They just focused on sales, and they found brands in e-commerce products that they could scale up and sell. And they were very good at scaling and selling. They didn't waste any time on operations of like building products or shipping products or processing credit cards. They didn't do any of that. They just focused on selling, since that's the hardest thing. And their partners, their joint venture partners, are lined up wanting to work with them, and they only take so many a year. So keep that in mind. What's the hard part of your business, and how do you focus all your effort on that, since that's the thing you're going to have to focus on anyway. Next question. Ricardo Delgado. How do I analyze purchasing another business? I have an opportunity to purchase a barber school. They're asking $80,000. Would it make sense to get a loan to buy this business? Great question, Ricardo. I am the guy to talk to about that. Reach out to me, and we can dig into that to answer your question. I don't know if $80,000 is a good deal or not. It really comes down to, what are you buying for $80,000? Are they doing $1 million a year in cash flow? If so, then write them a check today. If they are losing money and they have, leases you can't get out of and all kinds of equipment and stuff, which is garbage, then maybe $80,000 isn't a good deal. So it really just depends. You really do have to look at cash flow. You have to look at hard assets. You have to look at recurring revenue, like revenue that you can depend on, because whenever you buy a business, if you're not just buying the assets and everything that's set up, if you have an idea that you're going to somehow get revenue similar to what the revenue was before you bought it, you've got to make sure that that revenue is portable, is recurring, or is somehow transferable in the sale. A lot of times people put these prices on these businesses, and at the end of the day, there is nothing to sell, because if the cash flow dries up, what are you buying, right? Unless, of course, you're just buying the assets at like a fire sale. That's okay too. Cool. Keep that one in mind. That's a good one. I love M&A stuff. M&A is a great way to grow your business quickly. And especially because I like that you're looking at a barber school, given that I know you need labor. So it's a great way to kind of line up that relationship between your need for labor and your ability to produce labor at a school. Next question, Kristen Lander. How can I track sales made through strategic partnerships with other businesses? I am partnering with several like-minded businesses to cross-promote our services and our products to each other's audience. What's the best way to go about tracking these sales? What else should I be considering in this process? That's a great question. So as far as cross-promote services, I guess it really comes down to how you, I guess I would need more information. It would depend on how you track sales as it is, right? Like if you're selling e-commerce and you can just give each other all like unique URLs, that then the e-commerce platform just tracks the sale. That's one thing. If it's more of relationship type selling, then you'll have to build some sort of process. I mean, again, it's going to come down to systems and processes, right? Your standard operating procedures. When you make a sale, how do you account for where that sale came from? If you're managing your marketing processes correctly, you're probably already tracking where your leads are coming from, and if you're not, you should be. So if you're tracking where your leads are coming from, then your strategic partners would just be another name of where the leads are coming from, and then whatever you owe them for sending over that lead is where, is how you calculate it. So yeah, it would just depend on your underlying systems and processes, I would think. Next question, Colin Jarvis Gum. What are some good places to look for investment? VC lists, accelerators. What exactly should I prepare to show potential investors? Pawmate's app is an app that connects dog owners near each other like Tinder. I've had some initial traction on new spots and 10,000 downloads in 4 months. I'm working hard on branding thanks to discussion with Sean, but need some guidance on funding and where to find it. All right, Colin. That's a fun idea. I like that. It's pretty cool. I can see why that would be good. I can definitely help you on the VC side of things and as investments in general. Long story short, you have two things when you're raising money that investors want to see. They will either want to see like cash flow that you're currently doing, so they can do a calculation and say, this is what the cash flow is worth to me based on the potential risk that it won't continue into the future. Or in a startup type situation, they do the same calculation, but it's a little bit more hypothetical in terms of like, if we see this pattern of growth and based on our revenue model, we can do a discounted cash flow analysis to determine what is it worth today. It's worth $1 million, and I will put 300,000 in for 30% or whatever. Like that's kind of how the math goes. So what you really need to be able to show is, in my opinion, is how did you get those 10,000 downloads in 4 months, and how would you continue to get those? And then also, I guess I would also want to know what's your revenue model, like how do you actually make money, or how do you anticipate making money if you're not making money right now? And can you and are you seeing that 10,000 downloads continue to grow, and are you seeing lifetime value of the client, meaning like, well, A, how much money are you going to make from them, but B, also like, are they sticking around, or do they just download it and then don't use it, right? If you're telling me that you had 10,000 downloads and those people are active users and are continue to be active users, and it looks like they're going to stay for a long time, then those are all good things to include in an investor pitch deck to explain those things. Using real numbers as much as possible with real experience is the name of the game. I get really annoyed seeing pitch decks which are all this hypothetical stuff of like, oh, the market is $1 trillion and like we're going to capture blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't give a crap about any of that. Like, whatever. As long as there's a market and you're showing me that you've figured out how to connect with that market through, and here's the actual results I'm getting, and all I need to do is do X, Y, Z. I need to spend this dollar in this way to get this result to continue to scale. That's what you want to talk about in your pitch deck. And keep it short. Don't make like a 60-page pitch deck. It's like nobody wants to see that. And I'm happy to help you with that. This is interesting. I'm definitely happy to help you dig through that. So when you have something, send it over. Quade Sturdy. When would you consider protecting IP? As I create more forms and systems to enhance my services, I've had the thought about copyright and trademarks. I feel as though all the forms I am making will set me apart from my competition. I would love to be able to license out all these systems and processes when I hit that level. That way I can help others operate better companies while getting another revenue stream. Not sure if this is a common practice of small business. Figure it's worth an ask. Thanks. Yeah, great question. So look, the good thing about IP is that it kind of by default falls into your lap, right? So if you've created it and you didn't take it from someone else, and you're using it, whether it's a copyright or a trademark, just throw that little copyright sign on there. If it's a trademark, just start publicly using it, assuming you're the first one to have used it. The law really is in your favor because you just started doing it, which is actually a nice feature of our copyright and trademark system, which is basically the first one who just starts using it and can publicly display that they did use it. Tie goes to them. Now there's some very much more formal things you could do to officially copyright and trademark things, of course, but from a poor man's perspective, that's the best way to do it. And honestly, that's a lot of times the best way to do it, regardless of how much money you have to spend, because there's no point in spending money on all this, trademarking and copywriting and filing everything. I mean, we're not curing cancer here most of the time, and so a lot of what we're doing is pretty much replicatable individually anyway, even with copyright protection. So it's where you're hitting it on the head is it's the amalgamation of all of these things that make it valuable. So focus on making how all these things fit together and make them work and make them successful. That's where the value really comes from. It's not on any individual item. So I think you're going down the right path. If you're building systems and you're building processes and you're documenting them and you're thinking towards the future of when you might license those out and let other people use them to drive revenue, you're perfectly good at thinking about that. I wouldn't focus so much on the legal aspects. I just focus on the actual get it done, make it work, build something great. Because it's again, don't worry about so much about people stealing it. Just make it great. And then take it from there. All right, Mark Rodriguez. How do I transition to a different professional segment business model that will create ongoing residual income? I have been an S-Corp in the automotive training sector since 2002. I feel stuck in an industry where this is all I feel qualified to do. That is train sales communications in sales and service and auto dealerships. I no longer have the passion and drive I once had. I find myself being one phone call from going out of business and 2 phone calls away from being overbooked. During the pandemic, I made investments in podcast equipment and have not generated $1 of revenue from going live on Facebook. Feeling lost and left behind. Turning 56 this month. Frustrated. All right, Mark. Look, at the end of the day, it really just kind of comes down to there's a book which is on my shelf back here, but I don't know where it is exactly this moment, called The Big Leap. And I would encourage you to read The Big Leap. It's written by a guy named Gay Hendricks. and it's a great book that talks about kind of finding, making the big leap to kind of really to work within your zone of genius, which is what they call basically like not what you're excellent at, not what you're good at, because what you've been doing since 2002, you're probably pretty good at it. But it's probably not your zone of genius given what you're describing here. So that would be my recommendation, is probably read that, because you're looking for a general thing: residual income, a new business model, da 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 da. I mean, I can list off 20 different residual income and business models, but you're not going to do you like any of those? Are you going to be able to, excel at any of those? Are any of those your zone of genius? The hard part when you're in this position is trying to balance the I want and or need to make money right this second with trying to figure this out. And I would encourage you to take the time as best as you can, financial constraints, factored in, to take the time to really think about, well, what would I actually do if I was just to choose what I want to be doing and how I want to be doing it, and then boil that kind of general concept into like an actual outcome. And I know it's very vague. Read the book is a good place to start. And if you want to talk about some general residual income stuff, I mean, hey, I'm going to Oklahoma a week from now to meet with a guy about oil royalty leases. So that's interesting, and that's all residual income. It's all investment type stuff. But I'm excited about that. It's something new. So anyway, all right. Next question. Grant Elliott. What is the ideal CRM software for us to track a setter's leads who's done a call, who hasn't, whether they converted or need a follow-up, etc.? Also, best financial qualification strategy. Online low back rehab coaching program, hiring telemarketers, salespeople, and want to track data and sales processes. Okay, so the CRM software question. Look, the best CRM is the one that you actually use. So whatever you're comfortable with, is the one that you should use. So don't buy the most expensive one. Don't buy the one that somebody else told you is the best one. You've got to evaluate it for yourself. And if you're going to build all these systems and processes around the CRM, if you're physically the one doing it, make sure you're comfortable with whichever one you choose. They're all fine as long as you use them. There's a very simple one that I like called Nutshell. They're a little company based out of Michigan. Very inexpensive, very simple to use, very effective for probably like 95% of us, right? But whatever, use whatever one you works, whatever you're comfortable with as far as the actual software goes. And then also best financial qualification strategy. I'm not exactly sure what that one means. So I guess I would need more information to answer your question about a financial qualification strategy. I don't know if you're qualifying your employee people, if you're qualifying your customers, or what you're doing. Okay, I think that might be it for me. Yeah, that is it. I don't have any more. I'm out of paper. All right, everybody. It was great to see all of you. I am always around. Reach out to Shirley if you want to get in contact with me, or just reach out to me individually, however you decide to reach out to me. I'm always happy to talk with everybody. If you do reach out to me on Facebook, that's not the best place because I don't check Facebook that often. So make sure you send me an email or something like that. And we'll go from there. All right. Have a good week, and I will see you next time. Bye.